The Spanish colonization of the Americas was largely fueled by religion. This is the Native American response to Catholicism. Spanish religion has been in the Americas for a really long time. It started as soon as the Spanish first arrived in the Americas, 1492, and has lasted until today. Historians note that the main reasons for European exploration and colonization of countries were gold, God, and glory. This is very important context because it proves that Spanish motives were largely selfish. They wanted to grow their power by taking over other peoples and lands. The initial relationship between the natives and the Spanish was peaceful, so they saw great opportunity for the 3G criteria. Christopher Columbus described the native population as loving and docile. He pointed out that in all the world, there is not a better people or a better country. With this in mind, Spanish officials started sending ships to the New World. Colonists were meant to set up Spanish establishments in the newly found land. Among the colonists were missionaries who were meant to convert the indigenous population to Catholicism. Later, to further expand and gain control of more territory, the Spanish started a complex mission system. The purpose of Spanish missions was to convert indigenous populations to Catholicism and also set up a strong labor force. The first argument I will present is that natives did accept Catholicism. Spanish officials around the time of the discovery of the New World said the idea that their intentions were pure and for God. The Pope arranged for missionaries to bring salvation to Americas, and Queen Isabella, who financed Columbus, told the colonists to treat natives with loving kindness because she wanted them to be her new people. This shows positive motives within the Spanish and aims for the idea that natives had no reason to reject Spanish culture. Furthermore, the Spanish said that mission systems were here to evangelize or spread Christianity. Rob Blunt, executive director of Mission San Luis in Tallahassee, even went as far as to say Appalachia began to approach the Spanish about an interest in Christianity when they were first arriving in an area previously unencountered. It was said that they asked for some priest to be sent to them. Finally, native acceptance of the religion is seen in their involvement in the mission systems. Important figure Junipero Serra devoted his life to the evangelization of people who were not yet Christian. An initial missionization of Alta California began in 1769. These were communities with churches and schools for natives where there was a mutual respect between the two groups that honored the traditions of the other. The Spanish introduced skill sets which identified with the church. This was the most successful effort in getting natives to accept Spanish culture. It is the reason their culture, including religion and language, is so prominent in the Americas today. However, this perspective may be flawed, and it is important to realize the many biases in it because it would be most beneficial to the leading power of the time, which was Spain. The Forgotten Century states, "It is well known history is written by the victors, not by the vanquished." It adds on that the reason the vanquished perspective is forgotten is that their 16th and 17th century ancestors were pre-literate. Their ancestors' knowledge of the past was not written down, but recited in memory. And unfortunately, by the 18th century, the Indians of the southeast had lost almost all memory of the Spanish explorers and quite probably of their own ancient ancestors. This leads to an alternate perspective on the history that shows natives did not accept Catholicism. There are countless examples and reasons that prove this idea. In the very beginning, even when they had pure intentions, the Spanish showed their true colors. In a short account of the destruction of the Indies, Bartolomé de las Casas wrote, "Insatiable greed and ambition is the cause of their villainies about the Spanish." He said that prior to the Spanish arrival, Hispaniola was very beautiful. To add on, natives carried the idea that if Christians go to heaven, then they would prefer to go to hell. This directly proves the resistance to Spanish religion and the reason they rejected it. There were even flaws in mission systems. For instance, there were many stresses that Chumash Indians were under, which had to do with the economic processes demanded by the mission colonial system. This led to tensions rising and Indians resenting their indenture at the missions, causing natives to resort to violence. The violence grew, and there were rebellions like the 1680 Pueblo Revolt, where natives killed priests, burned churches, and drove Spanish out. The Spanish brought ideologies that were not compatible with the native people. The idea that natives completely rejected Catholicism is unreasonable. The instances natives did accept the new culture shows that in history, the truth is never completely on one side. Instead, when two points of view are put together and seen as a whole, there is a much truer angle on reality. The final perspective is that while natives did accept Catholicism, it was out of necessity and for the furthering of their peoples. There were times when natives adopted the culture and the groups lived seamlessly without any issues in missions. There were also times when natives rejected the culture, as previously mentioned about the revolt. What these two completely different outcomes have in common, though, is that in both, the natives were doing what they believed was best for them. When the Spanish were being somewhat reasonable, the natives played along. But when the Spanish were getting out of hand, the natives pushed away. Taking account of native intentions throughout the relationship shows the reality. Syncretism explains natives outwardly following Christianity, while inwardly keeping their culture. This leads to two cultures mixing together and making something unique. Something of a native and Spanish baby. Aztec Catholicism art illustrates Mary, the mother of Jesus, with Aztec gods like Quetzalcoatl. In South America today, Spanish is the most widely spoken language, and Catholicism is the most widely followed religion. Still, many people of indigenous descent speak their dialects and follow their own gods. The continuity of indigenous culture shows the extent to which natives accepted Spanish culture.